starting in just a second, everybody. Just waiting for some people to get in. Just want to also check to make sure we're live, too. Before we get started... All right, like I said, just waiting for a couple more people. Gonna get started in about 2 minutes. Hopefully my energy's a little bit higher than it's normally been. So as you can tell, it's been a long day for me. Get ready to get going in a little bit. Also, Waterloo, sparkling water, little cherry, little black cherry. I actually don't mind it. Not a bad flavor at all. All right, again, just waiting for a couple more people to join in. So we get some people live in the chat. I think we'll get started. Alrighty, let us get started then. Yeah, let's get started. Let's get started really quick. Let's stop the music right now. Let me make sure we're live on other stuff before we get going. Let's make sure we're live on other platforms. Let's make sure we're live on other platforms before we get started here. Yep, okay, we're live there. And let us get live. Let's also get live here. Alrighty. So how is everybody doing? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving you the latest NBA news and rumors, and also basketball opinions. Again, I do apologize to people that I haven't been necessarily live streaming as much. And, again, there wasn't a video today because I wanted to talk about this breaking news that came out, obviously with work and basketball practice that obviously had to take a back seat to everything. But after doing a little bit more information and research after practice and a little bit before I had to go into practice today and even go to work, this is starting to become some really dirty laundry going on for the Brooklyn Nets situation. And before we do get started talking about that, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff does tremendously well for us in the algorithms. Lets people know, hey, we're interested in it. You guys are loving the content. So, again, just want to put that out there for you guys to kind of, help us out on the channel, man. Like, again, it's all thanks to you guys that we are able to grow and develop into what we are now. Shout out to Brad, Tyrese, Brad, Peter. Pete, I should say. He goes by Pete now. What? Because he is him. But nevertheless, let us get started on this story and situation at hand. And here is what happened the other night. Chris Haynes actually had an interview with Kevin Durant. And basically this is what went down. He talked about the trade, talked about the Nash stuff. So let's kind of read quickly what he had to say. It wasn't difficult to request a trade at all because it was about ball, Durant told Bleacher Report, who Chris Haynes also works for, which I believe they're owned by the same Bleacher Report and TNT, that is. I went to them and was like, yo, I don't know how we like preparing. I don't like shoot-arounds. I like practices. I need more. I want to work on more S. Hold me accountable. Get my butt in film, and we're going to help get on everybody else's head. I want to do more closeouts. I want to work on shell drills at practice, and that's why I kind of titled it KD wants more shell drills. Never heard a player before ever say that. You can ask my guys right now. They would probably prefer to just play than do shell drill. But This is the type of stuff I was coming at with them. It was like, yo, I need to make sure everybody around me can make my life easier. Hell no, I want to make everybody else's life easier. Ask Steve Nash. You can call him right now, and I would say so. Yeah, well, I need more closeout drills. We need more practice. That's what I was on. I wasn't feeling that, and nobody was on the same vibe with me. Jack Vaughn is. I had some complaints in the summer, and my complaints were not about just me. It was about how we can move as a unit. I want to be respected out here in the basketball world. I don't want players looking at us like, oh man, these blanks are so full of blank. There's not the type of team I want to be on. So when we're playing like that, one person they're going to look at, and that's why I requested a trade. And Kevin Durant also went on to say this about his teammates, which I didn't really appreciate as much, and we'll get into that. Above all, let's see here. Maybe it's unfair to put that on Durant, though. He did join the Nets and clearly had some say in major decisions. He certainly seems to think that way, as he pointed out nothing of the talent currently around him and acknowledging the expectations he still faces. He also insisted that he's having a good time with the Nets. Look at our starting lineup. Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, and me. It's not disrespect, but what are we expecting from that group, Durant said to Bleacher Report. You expect us to win because I'm out there? So if you're watching from that lens, you're expecting us to play well because 7 is out there. I'm really having a good time. I wish y'all could hear me. And he obviously went on to talk about, how people think that he's playing upset. If I got mic'd up, people would stop asking me if I'm happy or not. I'm enjoying every moment I get because on this blanking court, and a part of this, I tore my Achilles and the pandemic. I didn't know if we were going to play again. I didn't know if I was going to play again. I was like, this can't be it for me. I really enjoy every single moment out here. The parts of being a pro, I have been coachable. I have to knock down shots. I have to be more aggressive. I have to talk to my teammates right away. That's the journey and the battle. And so the reason why I am on right now to talk to you guys is because I feel like he is kind of having a cop out here. If I'm keeping it real, and we'll talk about the Ben Simmons stuff in a little bit. The reason why I think it's more of a cop out, in my opinion, is because when I think about this quote here, talking about his teammates, like, I'm not expecting you to be, championship contenders. I didn't pick you guys to be that, and we obviously picked. I think Pete and I and Brad all picked the Nets to be a play-in team. But you can clearly see that this team is good enough to at least be a play-in team. The problem I have with Durant is that you called out your teammates. It's like, this wasn't the right way to go about it. Like, I really don't think that Kevin Durant should have went about that. I think he should have just kind of said, like, hey, look, the roster isn't constructed the way I want it to be. And maybe that kind of goes into, well, he kind of picked the guys that he wanted, right? I mean, Joe Harris, Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal. I mean, the problem is that you had a young guy in Jared Allen going back to it. I mean, let's look at this 21 Brooklyn Nets team for a little bit before the trade all happened. You had Harden, you had Kyrie, you had Durant, Joe Harris, LeVert, Jeff Green, Jared Allen, LaMarcus. I mean, you had a bunch of guys on this team when you lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, this was like, my thing was like, Jared Allen is going to get you over the hump. Jared Allen is going to help you out a lot. But then when we look at your 23 roster, like, let's look at this roster. And let me move it over for people so you can clearly see this. Kevin Durant, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills, Edmund Sumner, like all the guys that he stated, like, yeah, you have a very young team. The oldest guy, I think, is Kevin Durant, if I'm not mistaken, if I look at it. I think he's the oldest guy on the team, or Patty Mills is, at least. To me, like, when I look at it, like, as being one of the older guys on the team, like, yeah, you're on a team with a bunch of young guys who are still trying to develop and still trying to grow their game. Like, of course you're going to be upset because you expected something else. I think Steve Nash did. I think everybody did. Whether it was you or Sean Marks or Kyrie Irving, whatever the situation was, the fact that you got rid of so many young guys on this team, looking at the 2021 season, got rid of a guy like Chiozzi, got rid of Bruce Brown. I mean, those guys were glue guys that you definitely needed on your team. And the fact that you got rid of them kind of signals to me that you didn't really care about winning, in my opinion. I mean, it never seemed like the Brooklyn Nets cared about winning as much as I think they should. This is all Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving's fault. Like, more so in the fact that, like, this was the team you decided to kind of hang your coattails on, right? You said, like, hey, especially because Kevin Durant, the rumor was that and I will keep bringing this up, he was supposed to be a New York Knick. Like, he was supposed to be in in Gotham. He wasn't supposed to be in Brooklyn. He was supposed to be in Manhattan and in the Big Apple. Like he was supposed to be there. And he ended up going to Brooklyn. The team was nice. I thought the team had a lot of good chemistry. I thought they were trending in the right direction with Kenny Atkinson as the coach. I still think Kenny Atkinson should have been the coach for Kevin Durant, but he decided to go Steve Nash. Again, I am in the belief that when you are a young coach, like you should be taking on assignments where it's like, let's see you develop with the young guys as well, because that's when I think you can develop your coaching voice, and especially for the NBA, it's a lot harder because you're dealing with a bunch of guys that are making so much money. It's hard to kind of like, really go at them, compared to like high school or even college. College is starting to get a little tougher too, but, especially with those younger age groups, it's like, yeah, it's more accountability, but I think you have to have a certain voice to be a head coach in the NBA. Like, I think obviously guys like Ime Udoka being on this staff many years ago, I think Jacques Vaughn has that ability, in my opinion. And so when I really look at this whole situation, when it comes down to everything, I'm just disappointed in the fact that like there was no accountability from Kevin Durant saying like, hey, like this was my team, this is the way I constructed it, and it's my fault. When it is like, I know a lot of people are going to try to put the blame on Steve Nash. Like Steve Nash is always going to be the scapegoat, but he can't be the scapegoat for him anymore. Like, to me, that's just not okay. Like, I don't hate Steve Nash. I don't think he's the worst coach in the world, but at the same time, you set him up for failure when you decided to pick him as your coach instead of just going with Kenny Atkinson. I think Kenny would have done it. Like, I think Kenny would have done a fine job. I like the way the direction that team was going, and they just went in a completely different direction. And of course, you had the Kyrie Irving statement of like, "Hey, we don't really need a coach. We're balling without a coach. Like, we are the coaches." And that to me, like when they went on the IG Live and did all that stuff, man, it is hard, man. Like I'm dumbfounded and astonished that like Kevin Durant, like I think Chris Haynes did a phenomenal job. I think Chris Haynes is one of the best reporters out. I would say he's the best. In my opinion, I pick him over Woj and Shams any day. I think Chris Haynes is just that guy. And he did a tremendous job kind of doing that. And again, and to kind of continue on to the story, like, especially with the first part, it's like, you want more closeouts, you want more practice. Not to quote the great AI, but like, we're talking about practice. Like, you tell me what player loves. I mean, again, I played before. I think all of us, watching in the chat have played in some sort of practice before. Maybe not basketball, maybe a different sport. For some of my soccer guys out there, or even, football guys, like we know what practice was like. Like it was tough. It was intense. And when there's running, it is hell. I still remember New Year's Eve running. Like it wasn't the most fun thing in the world. We had to run on New Year's Eve, kind of heading into New Year's Day. But, to me, it's like, I think Kevin Durant is not being honest here. Like, he really loves practice like that. I've never heard of a player loving practice like that at all. Unless like the best memories that you make, I think, with your teammates, honestly, are like times where you're on the bus or times before the game. Like you're just bonding, like that bonding and that camaraderie is something commendable. But, Steve, like the fact that you got mad because Steve Nash wouldn't run more shell drill or more practice, like that's just kind of, I'm just not sure that's the right thing. What I will agree with Kevin Durant, though, is the film study. I don't think these guys watch film. It's clearly, I mean, if they don't watch film, to me, I just think it's all null and void. Like, you can't be mad, you can't be upset when you're not watching film yourself to get better. Not the Kevin Durant, but the other guys. Like, you have to watch the film. Like, I think film, as much as these guys don't realize, like, film really lets people know, like, where they're at in their game. It lets them know, like, hey, like, you forgot to do this on this assignment. Like, hey, we're doing this rotation. Like, as soon as, for example, I'll just use the Golden State Warriors kind of peel off rotation matter. But, hey, Steph Curry gets beat. Draymond Green kind of steps up and kind of takes on that guy. And then you see Steph Curry peel off to go to another man. And you kind of see that sort of rotation that goes on. Like maybe like, hey, Klay Thompson has to move up. Everybody kind of has to move one so Steph Curry can go get a guy. And to me, like, that's the frustrating part about, like, I think film is important, and the fact that, like, you have some players on the Nets organization that think that it's not okay. Like, I don't know how you survive. Like, again, not saying that film is the end all be all, but you do have to watch some of it. You have to watch a little bit of it to understand, like, hey, this is what we're actually asking of. Like, for example, Royce O'Neal. Like, hey, we need you cutting when there's a baseline drive. Like, we need you to cut from this angle, or hey, we need you to slide over a little bit more to the left or to the right because that allows more spacing, allows guys like Kevin Durant to just hit you quickly for an open three, kind of being a spot up shooter in that sense. And so that to me is kind of where I think that these guys need a reality check. It's frustrating, man. Like, I can see why Kevin Durant requested a trade. I don't blame him for requesting a trade. But at the same time, I talked about it way before. This is your mess. You have to clean it up, man. Like, you just can't leave it for someone else to take over because you failed at what happened. Again, it's bound to happen. It does, and it's not anything to kind of poo-poo at. But at the same time, like, I think to kind of continue on and hammering this point, like, this is the situation you wanted. Like, you had the opportunity to go to the Knicks. You had an opportunity to do all that, but you listened to Kyrie Irving, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But then you have to make it work there. You have to work and collaborate with Sean Marks and Steve Nash if that's the coach and the GM you chose. Maybe the GM not so much, but the coach for sure you chose. And so, it's kind of frustrating to kind of look at what the Nets are at this point and what I think they could be. I mean, like I said, they could potentially, we looked at many years ago when they lost in the conference finals to the Milwaukee Bucks. We look at this roster. This was a solid, nice roster. Like, this is a winning roster. A couple of mistakes here and there, but like, you have Spencer Dinwiddie as well as a backup point guard. This team was just built different. Like, I do believe, I mean that literally. Like, I feel like this team could handle, battling. Whereas I feel like this team in 2022, 2023, I don't know if this team can battle. There's no one on here where I'm like, yes, like, this person's going to battle. I could see this person just like going out and just giving it his all. Like, again, not questioning the heart and determination of a lot of these guys, but when you have 4 players over 6'11", 6'10", and they are kind of, with only one of them really being a true center, and then with Sharp not really getting that many minutes, kind of getting some spot minutes here and there, it is frustrating to kind of look at and to kind of monitor and to see, like, this team, it just doesn't have it. It doesn't have the heart, it doesn't have the tenacity, and you can clearly see when they're giving up so many boards. Like, my whole thing too is like TJ Warren, a guy that was like in the bubble, like balling out, and I believe I don't think he's played yet. He hasn't played yet, and I kind of want to see what he's able to do for this roster. But I'm sorry, my voice is just gone right now, but it's just disappointing to watch. Like, and not that I'm like, hey, like, the Nets should be like the number one team in the NBA, like, they should be dominating, they should be doing, like, no, that's not what I'm expecting. But I'm expecting more of competing. Like, giving up 153 to the Kings tells me that you kind of gave up. And the fact that you gave up on Jack Vaughn, who, again, great assistant coach, became a head coach out of necessity because, I think they were concerned about the Ime Udoka situation, which, whatever happens there, like, we'll figure it out a little bit later, like, what the real situation is going on. But, like, you have a guy that was there before. I really do think the assistants make all the difference. Like, let's look at the assistants here for Jack Vaughn. For Steve Nash, now Jack Vaughn. Like, you have Tiago Splitter as the player development guy, Daniel Jones, strength and conditioning. You got Jack Vaughn as the assistant, Brian Keefe, Ryan Kelly, Royal Ivy, Igor Koskov, Adam Capcorn, Trevor Hendry. And then you look at the Brooklyn Nets from the year that they almost won the whole thing. Almost went to the NBA Finals. You had, you had Tiago Splitter. You had Adam Harrington. You had Sebastian Poirier. You have Dave Libbard. You had Jack Vaughn, who was a great assistant. Mike D'Antoni, good assistant. I can clearly see why the offense was clicking that year. Emi Udoka, great defensive like leader, guts guy, like really tells it how it is. And again, Ryan Kelly, Royal Ivy, Jordan Ott, like that's a great assistant crew. And that's probably why Steve Nash was so successful in that first year compared to this year where it's like a lot of guys. I mean, there's some guys that are the same, but for the most part, they didn't have that D'Antoni on offense, and even to be honest with you, that Emi Udoka on defense, like he is a difference maker. Whatever happened in Boston, it is what it is, but he's a difference maker on the defensive end. Like you can clearly see where Tatum and Brown and the whole Celtics unit really stepped up their game on the defensive end. And so I'm a little disappointed that they didn't try to go a little bit more and pursue Emi Udoka. I think he does deserve at least a head coaching spot, depending on what went on. Again, we don't know what really went on. So I'm just curious to see what goes on. But let me know in the comment section down below what you guys make of this whole Brooklyn Nets situation. I'm going to read quickly the Ben Simmons stuff and then kind of sign out of here. I didn't want to keep the stream too long, but look out for this video coming up soon. All right, let's move on to the Ben Simmons news. And this is from The Athletic. The Nets hold a players-only meeting to discuss Ben Simmons' performance, sources say. The Brooklyn Nets held a players-only meeting on October 29th to discuss point guard Ben Simmons' performance this season. Sources with direct knowledge of those meetings, but who were unauthorized to speak about it until, whatever that is. Basically, the team's level of aspiration towards Simmons bubbled to the surface when they met after a loss to the Indiana Pacers. Markieff Morris spoke out in front of the team about how they need Simmons to succeed, and then he has to respond when he deals with adversity on the court. Simmons appeared to take Morris' words to stride and was responsive and attentive throughout, sources say. I'm assuming there was probably a player that was in that meeting. So the backstory, the Nets have dealt with months of turmoil with the organization, including coaching changes, obviously the Kyrie Irving situation. And, I just think that they were planning on hiring Emi Udoka, but they kind of went back on whatever was happening. And so on the court, Simmons made his return from surgery, but recently missed 8 games to have his left knee drained because of fluid. After this game, the season starting point Ben Simmons, has been in the backup center spot in the last 4 games. It marks the first time he has come off the bench in his last 7 seasons. He was a late scratch in Sunday's loss to the Lakers, which the team citing left knee soreness and a reason for his absence. Let's see here. The early stretch merely set back 2 years from what he said. So what Simmons is saying in a discussion with the Athletic, Simmons acknowledged the criticism he knows coming his way. You're obviously going to not be happy with anybody's out, Simmons said, but for me, I've been dealing with the left knee since the start of the season. It's been swollen. I had a PRP injections. I had blood drained multiple times. So it's not made up things, it's real. I get the skepticism, but the one thing we'll say about me is I'm a real competitor. I want to play and win. So I'm going to do what I can to get out there. Here's what I'll say about Ben Simmons. I've made my peace with Ben Simmons many moons ago. I told you guys that I would not make another Ben Simmons video at that point, especially with the whole Brooklyn Nets situation. Sean, I'll read your comments in a second. But I've been disappointed, man. Like, here's the one thing I will say is that, with the knee soreness, like that's the one I get. To me, like the stuff in Philly was all stuff that I think he could have handled better. Like, obviously, the fans can be ruthless, they can be savage. But at the same time, like, I think Ben Simmons has the ability to handle that situation. I just think what's disappointing for me for a Ben Simmons perspective is this was kind of the fresh start that he wanted, right? Like, this was a situation where, hey, I'm no longer playing with Embiid. I'm no longer in a hostile city in Philly. I can finally play free. I can finally do what I need to do as a player. But it seems like the injuries continue to get in the way. To me, I feel like he reminds me a little bit of Johnny Manziel. A guy that, didn't seem to, when he got to the pro level, didn't seem to enjoy it as much. Like I felt like he just didn't really enjoy the game. Like he's now playing in the fans called the plays league. I can't remember what that one's called. But he's not playing competitive, like really high stakes football anymore. And it's because of the situation that's going on right now. And I'm a little disappointed in Ben Simmons' kind of tenacity that I would love for him to have. You know, we talked about him numerous amount of times. I think, um, you know, Pete, Brad, and I, we've talked about Ben Simmons multiple times. Like it's clearly a situation where like we feel bad for Ben Simmons, but it's also one of those things where I feel like I think he has some ability and some control, in my opinion, to work on the stuff that he needs to. You know, I think for me, like I think he has the ability to do stuff, man. Like that's the frustrating part for me from Ben Simmons' perspective is like I think he has all the tools. He is, you know, obviously a guy that can at 6'10" can play the point guard position. I mean, that's that's everything that you want in a point guard. But at the same time, it's frustrating to know that like a little bit of adversity and he's done. And that's just not what you want to see from your superstar player. For a guy, and Sean, I don't know if he deserves to be bullied per se, but he does deserve some criticism when it's justified. And this is justified criticism. Like he needs to show up when he's paid as a guy that should be scoring 20, at least 25, 7 and 8. Like he should be LeBron James out there. Like just at least the numbers wise. Doesn't have to score the same way, but has to have the same numbers at least for a guy that's making that much money. And the fact that we're now kind of saying like, oh, well, Ben Simmons, he's just going to make like 5 points a game. I think this is his lowest average. Like, let's look at this really quick and just kind of look at it from a perspective and a lens of like, this is who he might be now as a player. Let's see here. Ben Simmons. This is his lowest average ever in his career. I mean, I hope you guys can see it here. 5.8 points a game. Hasn't attempted the 3 all day. Field goal percentage wise, like it's horrible. It's 48. Like he should be shooting in the 60s, to be honest. The high 50s. I am stunned at kind of Ben Simmons. What seems to be like the peak was 2 years ago at 24. Like Ben Simmons is a 26-year-old guy at this point now. And the fact that he has peaked at 24 is crazy to me. He's a grown man. They should be on his butt. Hey, man, like I agree with you in that sense, Sean. Like they really should be like, hey, man, like you at one point were averaging almost 17 a game. With the amount of rebounds and the assists that you throw out there, like, yeah, like he definitely should be on him and letting him know, like, hey, man, this is not acceptable. This is not what we need from our third best player, paid like our third best player type of situation. I mean, to me, I felt like the Brooklyn Nets lost this whole trade deal, and I said that before, and a lot of people laughed at me. A lot of people, were frustrated. A lot of people are frustrated, man. Like I said it then, like, I think that this was not a good trade because at the time it was like, yeah, you're getting a defensive player, but what do the Brooklyn Nets need to do more? They need to rebound and score the basketball because they're clearly struggling with those two things. And so the fact that like now at this point in juncture, like Ben Simmons isn't going to offer you a third star caliber type of role. Like I know James Harden is inconsistent now in his old age. Maybe not old age, but in his older days, like he's not as like what he once was in the Houston days or even the early Brooklyn days. But I mean, he's giving you a lot more than this. I'll give you that much. Like it is starting to become a situation and it is starting to become a concern that he's now starting to come off the bench. Has only played 10 games, has only started 6. Like, I think the writing's on the wall for Ben Simmons. And Sean said Ben Simmons was retweeting a video of him shooting jumpers leading up to the whole season, saying the media won't show you this. And here's the thing I'll say about that too, Sean, is like, we know Ben Simmons can shoot at the YMCA against guys my size. I'm short, by the way. Like, it's like, any guy below 5'10", it's like, yeah, we know you can shoot over those guys. Like, there's no issue with that. It's like, can you do that with NBA pressure? Can you do that against the best defenders? Like, that is, to me, the situation where I'm like, okay, you guys need to figure it out with Ben Simmons. Like, for Ben Simmons, like, it is kind of one of those things where it's like, we know what you can do against the guys like that, like the average Joe. But what can you do against defenders and guys that are much bigger than you, much stronger than you, or even mostly at the equal level? Because I think Ben Simmons is a strong guy. But like, what can you do against those guys? It's clearly shown that you can't. And I think that as someone who loves the game so much, I think Ben Simmons needs to step up in every statistical category at this point and really lead the team. Like, this is your team to lead, because I think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are probably going to get out of there. And so who's left after that? It's Ben Simmons, or do you go TJ Warren, or whatever direction you go? I don't think it's going to be the right one for them. And so it's tough, because I respect kind of the whole situation. And more so, I respect who Ben Simmons could potentially be as a player. What I don't respect is the fact that he's kind of taken a mentality where it's like, well, it just wasn't my day today, or like, yeah, I didn't really play very well. And the fact that there's been scouting reports talking about how he's not committed to the game and things like that, it shows now. And that's something that is a hard stigma to get by, unless you change the perception of what you are. Change the habits that make you Ben Simmons now to the Ben Simmons that I think we all know and love. And so if I'm advising Ben Simmons, if he ever wanted to listen to me, I would say that, like, hey, like, let's work on that stuff. You're only 26 years old. I mean, there's still a whole, like, 4 years for you, Ben Simmons, to, like, really develop and be a good player. And really, like, work on the mental conditioning, man. Like, I know that the whole situation in Philly was kind of a mix of, I think, for both, like, I think Ben Simmons embellished some stuff, while also I think the 76ers, need to do a little bit more a mental health check with him. But, I think both parties are at fault, in my opinion, because they should have communicated with one another. It basically just started when Rich Paul came to them and said, hey, Ben Simmons wants a trade request. And I did not like that one bit. And I think none of you, I'm sure if any of you guys were in that situation, none of you guys would like it either, because that's not the way that you do it here. That's not the way you do it in the NBA. Like, you have to, earn your spot. You have to earn your minutes. Like, that's something that doesn't change from high school to NBA. Like, you have to earn that stuff. Like, coaches are watching. Like, coaches have more hands-on with you. Like, they could say, hey, like, Ben Simmons, we need you to do these 4 things in order for us to be a more successful team. And so, yeah, man, I'm just kind of disappointed that, from Ben Simmons' perspective, that it kind of looks like this is where he's at the current moment. And I'm not sure where he's going to get to. If he's going to get better or worse, it's going to be up to Ben Simmons, in my opinion, to see what he can do. But anyway, guys, that is going to do here for the Charge. Thank you once again for joining us here, giving you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll catch everybody on the next video and the next live stream. Hopefully, it should be this weekend. I'm excited to do that stuff. So, again, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your night and rest of your day, whatever time you're watching this, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.